morning, everybody. Keith Engle here for Jack and Keith's Weekend Playbook. Hopefully everybody had a great weekend. We'll talk about some exciting stuff that we feel went on. Well, more sort of exciting stuff. There's a couple of good things to talk about. And I want to welcome in my co-host, Boxing Hall of Fame writer, Jack Hirsch. How are you, Jack?
Keith, I have to get my priorities straight, because when you wake up in the morning, you should ask yourself what you have to be thankful for. And I asked myself this morning, and the first thing that I thought of was, thankfully the Yankees won, so I don't have to listen to Keith Engle vent about him this morning. So I've got to get my priorities in order.
Well, I have a comment to make about it. I won't vent, but I do have a comment to make. So anyway, welcome everybody on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. You can see all the groups, some of the great groups. There's hundreds of groups that allow us to share this content and all of my content. And we thank them. And some of the most important ones are at the bottom, always scrolling across the screen. And Jack, by the way, we had our initial college football picks, and Jack jumps out to a commanding one-game lead right away. So great job last weekend, Jack, of picking 2 out of the 3 games correctly.
Let me ask you this, Keith, just to make a little comparison with college football and the NFL. A complaint about the NFL is that the first few weeks, they're not really as organized as they should be. So there's more unpredictability. Is it the same in college? Are they ready to go from the get-go?
Some teams are more prepared than others, obviously. Are they ready for that full speed getting hit? Probably not. I think you saw some really sloppy football in Ireland. On top of, maybe not being at full capacity as far as preparation, they had to fly halfway across the world to Ireland to play football, too, which I think is a strain for these kids. I think I still got some music going. So no, I don't think they're ready to play. And you saw some sloppy football in the Ireland game with the Kansas State and Iowa State, and you saw some sloppy football in all of the games. I think the most impressive team all weekend for me, as far as what do I want to say? Effectiveness, right, was Kansas. I thought played as clean as anybody against Fresno State. I thought that game would be closer. I did like Kansas to cover, but I think that was the best game. All the other games had some sloppiness, and UNLV got a scare from Idaho State, who's plays a division below them. That's not even a FBS 1 matchup. So you get that type of scare. Maybe it's good too, and you get that out of your system playing. That's why they play a lot of cupcakes. But next week, these teams don't start off with cupcakes. We're starting off with heavyweight contenders in week 1. So it's going to be a lot of fun this next week.
And the 2 big games, Texas and Ohio State. I mean, you talk about the Arch Manning era. To people, it's about to begin, even though he's been with the Longhorns for a couple of years. And to throw him in at his first major test, really, in reality, his first start, where it's his team against the national champions. I mean, you can't ask for a more compelling matchup.
Yeah, and we still don't. I mean, we've seen glimpses of Arch Manning. I'm confident he's going to be a really, really great player. But we don't know that for sure, because we've seen only glimpses of him, usually against teams that weren't, in the same calibers as Texas was. So it's going to be interesting to see. I read an interesting article since you brought up Arch. A lot of people are trying to figure out whether he's more like Eli or whether he's more like Peyton. And I have the same opinion. Most of the people, experts I saw, compare him more to his grandfather than they do either one of his uncles. That's the way he plays. He runs really well, much better than either one of his uncles. He's going to be an exciting player to watch this year.
Well, Arch Manning was Roger Staubach. The only difference was Roger Staubach had the cowboy personnel. Arch Manning had some of the most dreadful personnel in NFL history. That's why they lost with the Saints.
I told James Martin that he should have a statue at New Orleans just for staying alive 10 years there, for crying out loud. And I think, Jack, you saw him play. I was young, saw him play a little bit in college. I was very young, more in the NFL. But what I've seen watching a lot of film of him and whatnot, and film isn't the same as watching them live, obviously. I still think, and people today, because of whatever recency bias, don't believe me. I say if Archie played on a team as good as his two sons played on, Archie would have been better than either one of them. I really believe that. It's hard. You can't, it's an opinion. You can never prove it.
Yeah.
But I think it's a lot of fun to talk about sometimes. So it's fun. It's going to be interesting to see what Arch does. But congratulations on your wins. You got, let's see, what did you have here? You had Fresno plus 13, which was your only loser. Western Kentucky minus 10.5. I thought I had that game won with Sam Houston. They made a great run at the start of the second half, but kind of ran out of gas. And Hawaii minus 2.5. We both had Hawaii. Oh no, I had Sam Houston. I had Kansas. And I had Kansas State. Sorry, did not take Hawaii. So I had 1 and 2. You were 2 and 1. Great start to your season, Jack. And the real test starts this week because you got to pick among about 60 games. So good luck.
We get 3 picks out of 60 games.
We're going to do 3 picks, two favorites and 1. So yeah, you can. That's why you got to do the points though, because you could go find a game and just pick favorites to win very easily, right? Without the spread. So, but congratulations. Any thoughts? I know you're going to get yourself back into more college football, and I want to talk to you after the show a little bit about Friday.
Well, losses early in the year, like we're talking about, in reality, this weekend is, to me at least, the start of the college football season. I know we've had games. That to me is kind of the warm-up. Like I like to make the honeymoon references. It's like Ed Norton playing the piano, warming Ralph up for that classic show when he went for the $99,000 question. But this weekend really kicks things off big time, and then the momentum keeps rolling. But the games, Keith, and we were discussing this before the show a little bit, the playoff system, we were talking about baseball actually, but it applies to football and the other sports, but especially college football. A loss isn't as disastrous as it would be, in the past. You'd lose your first game in a colossal matchup. It could be LSU, Clemson, whatever. You lose that game, you're in a bad hole as far as winning the national championship.
Yep.
But now you can lose a game. You could lose a second game. You could maybe even lose a third game. And you can, with the playoff system, you could still come back.
If you're in a power conference and you're ranked, I should say, in the top 25. That's why I don't like the preseason polls, because teams get an advantage, or maybe it's more accurate that some teams get a disadvantage. If UNLV had managed to lose that game to Idaho State, their chances of being the group of 5 pick would have been greatly diminished, whether they won the Mountain West or not, because that loss would have really hurt them as far as being ranked. And you have to be the highest ranked group of 5 conference winner. So,
and you remind me when you mentioned Fresno State a little while ago, because the Netflix has the series on the Cowboys, and Barry Switzer is a small part of it, having coached the Cowboys to a Super Bowl. When Barry Switzer was the coach at Oklahoma, they win the national championship. They go unbeaten, but at that time it was a poll. The writers would have to vote and coaches would get a vote. And even though he's the coach of Oklahoma, he voted for Fresno State that had a small-time program but was unbeaten. And they asked him, well, why did you vote for Barry? He said, look, in my opinion, they should be the national champions. They were unbeaten. They're number 1 as far as I'm concerned. He votes for them and says it knowing Fresno State doesn't have a prayer, of actually getting it. But he's like throwing them a bone that they're number 1. I rate them over us.
It sounds like Barry Switzer right there. That's all you need. I liked Barry Switzer, but that sounds like classic Barry Switzer for sure. I would say good morning to Rick and Brian and Michael over here. And Rick says, and this might be because I really was ripping on Georgia the other night in my college football show. Arch played briefly against Georgia, which he did, and he didn't play well. But again, I don't think Rick's making. I don't think he's making a leap that Arch is going to be a bust. I don't think anybody's going to go there. So I'm excited. This is my time of year. I like Sundays a lot. I love professional football. I love my team. But I'll be honest with you, Wall-to-wall football for me, Saturdays, even with all the bull crap that's going on around the game, I'm still as excited Saturdays as I always have been, and I love that, and I want it to continue. So
I remember when I was hanging out with the late, great Bert Sugar, okay? And we were just hanging out talking sports. You know, he was well known for being a boxing guy.
But he was
and
big.
I asked him, what was your favorite sport, Bert? He says, well, boxing's actually my second favorite sport. College football's number one.
It's like I think that and NASCAR are the number one in-person participation sports in the world as far as fans showing up. So anyway, whatever. It'll be fun. We'll talk more about college football on Friday as well. I want to talk to you about something when we get done. We will touch on the Yankees and baseball a little bit, obviously. Yankees had losses. I kind of railed on them yesterday, playing horrible baseball. They lose 8 in a row to the Red Sox. They get it was a must win yesterday. They have to start winning some of these games against better teams. But again, my only problem, I hate to complain after a victory, but they win hitting 4 home runs. Nice night for.
Oh gosh, that's what the game is today, Keith. You want to play small ball, get a run at a time. You know.
You have to play that in the playoffs. This is why the playoffs, and they went to the World Series. I know you're going to say that, but they lost. But for the last 7, 8, since they won in 2009 almost, every year they get to the playoffs, they get shut out because they get shut down by good pitching because they don't hit home runs.
Yesterday, the Yankees were playing small ball to an extent, okay? And even late in the game, Keith, they pulled Stanton, who's been playing right field. And is he a liability there? I suppose he is, because early in the game, Alex Bregman hits a line drive to right field, and Stanton didn't take a chance running in trying to catch it. So Bregman gets a single, okay, with 1 out, no one on base. You kind of live with that. Okay, yeah. As long as Stanton catches what's hit to him, you know, you're fine. But they took Stanton out late in the game. So, he had 1 less at-bat. You were risking not having his bat when they had a 5-2 lead.
Well, you got to protect the lead, though. You can't.
Yeah, you got to protect the lead, but it was a philosophical question. You might maybe need his bat later on. I mean, what's more valuable at that point? I agreed with what Aaron Boone was doing. Devin Williams, his last few starts, he's looked really good. The last few appearances, relief, he's looked good.
Yeah.
So you kind of wonder if Bednar slips. I think Bednar is temporarily their closer.
As do I.
But his last, he was a little shaky a start or two ago, a relief appearance or 2 ago. If Williams could keep pitching like this and the Yankees get in the postseason, he might reclaim his closer's position once again. You never know. But, things are a little shaky there with Mark Leiter. He wasn't in yesterday. Luke Weaver, he gave up a big hit with the bases loaded. I don't put it all on him. He didn't make a bad pitch. It was one of those bloopers that found the right part of the outfield. But, Yankees in a little bit of a dogfight. I don't think they're going to win their division. Keep this 6 games now. But they have, and the other teams in the mix, they're half game behind the Red Sox. They're something like a game and a half, maybe 2 games ahead of Seattle. I don't know exactly. I didn't see it, but they have a lead of a few games in the wild card. But
3.5 for the Royals.
Okay, so conceivably the Royals, the Guardians, could make a real run at it. Maybe a team like the Rangers could get hot and get in the mix all of a sudden. But nothing's assured them. They have to play well the rest of the year.
I think the Guardians are taking themselves almost out of it. They're 5 games out of a wild card now, and they were in a position because some of the teams ahead of them were playing shaky baseball, but they've gone 2-8 their last 10, and lost 5 in a row. So I think they may have spit the bit here to mix my metaphors. But
I'd be a little more concerned if I were a team like the Mets, but only to a point. The Mets have a game and a half lead over the Reds. If the Reds falter at all, then the Mets are locked to get the third wild card
Yeah.
position at least. And maybe the Mets move up and get a higher wild card position, but they're a few games back, of the Cubs, the Padres. But the Mets don't have a few teams chasing them for the wild card position. It's only Cincinnati.
I would
And I
say
know Cincinnati has some good personnel, but their ceiling I don't think is that high. So if I'm the Mets, I'm not worrying at this point.
I'm not a Met fan, obviously, but I've got a bad feeling September is not going to be kind to them. I like the Reds. I like the Reds pitching, and the pitching is getting healthier for them. And in September, I think they've been very up and down all year, like a lot of teams have. Terry Francona could be the difference maker in the dugout and that starting pitching.
Let me ask you this. What team would it be a bigger disappointment for if they did not make the playoffs? And put your bias aside of being a Yankee fan. Put it aside. Bigger disappointment for the Mets or the Yankee franchises if they didn't make the playoffs?
For this given year?
This given year only.
The Mets.
The Mets, because
of, I think that, again, the Yankees had to temper. You talked about it yesterday, right? We had to temper their expectations because of Cole being out and the rotation issues. And
so losing Soto.
So you had to temper expectations. I would still expect them to make a wild card at least. But, I mean, again, it would not have been a complete shock for them not to make the playoffs. For the Mets and the payroll and they've got an owner who's getting a little impatient. He doesn't get in the headlines like Steinbrenner, but I feel like Steve Cohen behind the scenes might be more Steinbrennerish than we think.
He might be a little more so, but the Met fans were so thirsting for the Met franchise to turn things around, and all of a sudden, and the Wilpons weren't popular, so the Met fan base is real happy if anyone would take over for the Wilpons. And all of a sudden, Steve Cohen is spending all this money. And the Met fans who would normally complain about George Steinbrenner all those years, they welcome Steve Cohen doing the same exact thing.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, when your team signs free agents, all of a sudden they're not buying a championship. But if someone else does it, that team's buying a championship. That's kind of like the hypocrisy in sports. But Steve Cohen might be getting a little antsy behind the scenes finally, but I mean, what's he going to do about it? David Stearns is a good GM. He's not going to fire David Stearns.
Mendoza, maybe not Mendoza. What's the manager's name?
Mendoza.
Mendoza, yeah. He could take the fall here. This is his second year, and if they collapse, again, this is an impatient guy. I think more people think. You saw what happened with Buck. It happens to Buck a lot, Bo. So maybe he's a common denominator there. But what do the Mets do? As you said, if they do not make the playoffs here and they collapse in September, they're only 7-8 games over 500. Does Cohen go out and sign more big guys or change the roster, change the manager? He needs pitching is what he needs for sure. What do you do?
Well, the big storyline for the Mets in the offseason is going to be the Pete Alonso contract. Yeah. And first off, we have to see how Pete Alonso finishes the season. If the Mets win the World Series and Alonso's a force during the postseason, they got to give him a good contract. But Steve Cohen doesn't want to pay $30 million a year to a first baseman who is somewhat limited defensively. Let's call him average defensively, okay? Give him the benefit of the doubt. He's not bad, but let's call him average. Okay, altogether, but $30 million a year. You're age 31.
Not doing it.
You're going to give him a 4-year deal. I mean, he got $30 million this year, but it was a 1-year deal only for $30 million. And Alonso has an option of $24 million next year. So in reality, this is what Steve Cohen did. He says, "Okay, guy, I'm giving you a 2-year contract for $54 million," but he allowed Alonso to get to the $30 million mark this year. And if the Mets get in as a wild card, they get eliminated in the playoffs, Keith, I don't see Alonso getting more than a 2-year deal unless he's willing to settle. I could see the Mets giving him a 3-year deal, let's say at $80 million total, a little over 26, 27 million a year, but that's as far as they're going to go.
Is my take on the narrative of Pete Alonso since last winter, it's gone like 360 degrees. He finally signs with the Mets for less than he wanted to get. Couldn't get a better deal elsewhere. He signs. He gets off to a really good start, and the narrative in the media was basically, "Oh, great, Mets got a great deal. Now they'll go out. Now they'll give him the long-term contract. We got to make him, like you talk about, make him a long-term, lifetime Met." But now all of a sudden, I feel the narrative changing again as I read articles, and it's all the same thing. What's going to happen in the postseason? Will the Mets do what you're talking about? I don't think they should, by the way. I'd like to see him be a lifetime Met, but he's going to have to meet them somewhere in the middle because he's not going to become a $30 million a year player.
Keith, you know who his agent is? Scott Boras. He's not meeting anyone in the middle.
Well,
Boras is going to try to play hardball. Alonso's going to have to step in, and he's going to think, I can be a legacy player. I can be a historical player on the Mets, hold all these records. He already holds the home run record, but what he could do is maybe put the home run record out of reach. Because I'll tell you, the one guy who can challenge him for the home run record over time
Soto.
would be on Soto, because he signed a 15-year deal. So logic tells us, Keith, hypothetically, if Soto plays 15 years for the Mets, he averages 30 homers a year. That's 450 homers. Chances are he'll hit less than that. Let's make it 400. So Alonso still has his work cut out for him, you know?
I agree 100%. And to your point about Boros, unless you drop Boros, he's not changing his mind. It's hard for clients to get him to do what they want, which Alonso may want to stay for less money to have that legacy. I think because I don't think he's getting that money no matter. He saw last winter, he's not going to get the money he thinks he's going to get elsewhere.
No, I see the Mets, maybe a 3-year deal. Now, I made it a little higher than I thought. I see a 2-year deal. I'm offering $50 million for 2 years. If they wouldn't offer, why would they offer him more this off season than last off?
I wouldn't. I mean, he's had a better year.
What is it's not like he's gotten better.
Well, he's had a better year this year, I think. He's had a
better year, but they know he's a little older, and it's teams are going to have decisions to make with these free agents, like the Yankees with Todd Grisham. He's having a career year. He has 25 homers now. Chances are he's going to wind up with something like 31, 32 homers, let's say, okay, when all is said and done.
Max career.
Right, we're going to think, what a year. The Yankees got to sign him. The Yankees aren't going to go crazy. They'll maybe give him a 2-year contract, maybe, but I don't see them going above that. And I wouldn't invest 3 years in, Grisham. I don't trust them long term, and the Yankee, Brian Cashman isn't scared to walk away from a player who's had a career year. He often does it. He did it with Tino Martinez, who had 34 homers, 113 RBIs. But Jason Giambi was out there. And that's what could have affected the Mets not making Alonso a big offer last offseason, because Vlad Guerrero was a possibility. And now that Vlad is off the market, I don't know what the options might be otherwise.
I'd be willing to bet today, if we're talking about today, that Trent Grisham is not a Yankee next year, because somebody will give him money and years that the Yankees won't.
A little more. I don't think teams are going to go crazy, but I could see a team giving Todd Grisham $15 million a year for 3 years, $45 million, and I don't think the Yankees are going to quite want to go there. I could see the Yankees offering him he's making only $5 million this year. I could see a 2-year, $28 million deal they put on the table. So I think they're going to lose him next, in the off season. And you can pick up outfielders elsewhere. I don't want to say he's so easily replaceable, but they're alternatives. You could play Caballero out there.
You could.
For example, and he steals a ton. He could steal a ton of bases for you playing full time, and Grisham hasn't been so great defensively that you're gonna say, "Oh,
that was his reputation too." He was supposed to be a lover coming out of San Diego, and he's been very average in the outfield.
Yep.
Frankly, so I think it's a case of buyer beware. I think you feel the same way I do. I mean, he may come back next year and hit 230 with 10 home runs. So and be an average outfielder. So buyer beware with Grisham.
We're already making moves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still in baseball. I want to talk a little bit. The Padres and Dodgers look like they're going to have a tremendous race in September for that division. And you and I are both old enough to remember when that was meant making the playoffs or not making the playoffs. And now with the wild cards and whatnot, it's still going to be a fun race, but it doesn't have the same excitement that it would have had, say, back when, if you remember, before the wild cards, the Giants and the Dodgers had a huge weekend series the last weekend of the season. One finished with 101. I think it was the Dodgers, and the Giants finished with 100, and they were out. Then we had a great race like that a couple of years ago, too, with the Giants and Dodgers. They both got in the playoffs, so it wasn't as big a deal. I mean, I still feel like this hurts baseball. I understand they want the wild cards. They want the playoff matchups and the TV money. But from a pure fan standpoint and watching the game, doesn't it lose some luster when this race is going to be, to determine who gets to play somebody else in the playoffs?
It's funny. I have a debate show Saturday, and I told the guys I have to write down the questions when they pop into my head. Otherwise, I'm going to forget about them. And it would be a great debate question that's on this issue that you're talking about now, Keith. What is now a greater rivalry right now? The Dodgers and Padres, the Dodgers and Giants. The Dodgers and Giants were that great rivalry all those years, dating back to their time in New York when they were the Brooklyn Dodgers and New York Giants. And that arguably is the most famous rivalry, in baseball history, the Brooklyn Dodgers and New York Giants. Greater than the Yankees and Red Sox, I would say.
You know why it's greater is because the Red Sox never won. That's why, the Yankees for years were always beating up on the Red Sox. The Giants and Dodgers had more of a even, back and forth success rate, I think. That's why it's a better rivalry, I think. Okay,
those are good points to debate, for example. But I think finally now, the Dodger-Padre rivalry has overtaken the Dodger-Giant rivalry. It's a stronger rivalry, and not just because the Giants are having a subpar year. I just think the personalities with the Padres, the Dodgers, the way they go at it. But to answer your question, is as important as it used to be, and what's at stake? Of course not. But unless there's a bye at stake at the end of the season that they're fighting for, I mean, what does it matter in the long run whether you can win the World Series as a wild card, and people for the most part are going to forget your wild card team. They're not going to care that you won it as a wild card team. And Keith, the Yankees could have all this success, for example, best record in the major leagues. If they don't win the World Series, that's all you care about. But if the Yankees sneak into the World Series with an 83-79 record, sneak in the playoffs with an 83-79 record and win the World Series, I mean, you'll still vent about the bad record, but you'll be much happier.
I won't vent much until next year.
No, it doesn't. But does it mean anything in the NBA, Keith? Does it mean anything in the NFL? The Commanders and the Eagles, let's say that at the end of the year, the division is at stake, this and that, and they're both going to go in the playoffs unless there's a bye at stake. It doesn't mean, in reality, it doesn't mean anything.
I agree.
You're not playing for pride and blah, blah, blah.
Too many playoffs in every single league we just talked about because there's not enough at stake in a lot of these games. Buys, it's not to me a buy. And maybe in football it means a little more than baseball. Getting a bye, teams are used to playing every day. We've seen the teams with buys struggle in the playoffs under this format for baseball because they're used to playing every day and they take a week off basically before they play again. I don't think that's really good. It gets you healthy, but you lose some of your edge.
Well, does the interleague play mean anything anymore? Does American and National League mean anything? You saw Aaron Boone basically throw the game to the National League.
Oh,
I mean, this year in the home run derby to decide it, rather than strategizing who his best players might be. I could guarantee you this, Keith. If the All-Star game was a regular season game, Aaron Boone would have managed it much differently and much better than he did the All-Star game. But because he treated the All-Star game like an exhibition game.
Well, if you're going to finish it with a home run derby, it is an exhibition game.
No, but listen, I'm not against the home run derby. I mean, the home run derby, I'm going to tell you, but the only thing about the fans love it. It's a fans game, but I would do it a little different. Extra innings. I would let every team send their 9 guys who finished the game up to the plate or something for one swing that their pitcher pitches. You know, each batter gets one swing or whatever. You total up the homers, but that's I guess an issue for another time.
I'm not going to debate how they should do it when I don't think they should do it at all. That's for sure. Because to me, it's just a gimmick. You stop playing baseball after 9 innings. We don't play baseball anymore.
You know, Mac and myself used to drive Dr. Paul Semendinger crazy because we were playing devil's advocate. We proposed a rule that if the fans catch the ball, if they have on like a Yankee shirt on and you catch a home run ball from the opposing team, it's an out fan participation.
I would like you.
Steve Bartman.
That idea probably would promote a lot of violence in the stands. I'm guessing.
Can you imagine dropping the ball and the fans pummeling you? You hurt your team.
Right, and I think to take your idea a little further, you should make sure that every seat is, Yankee Met, Yankee Met, Yankee Met. Right? They should be evenly divided. So, anyway, one more thing on baseball, and on a little bit, I don't know if I want to say more traditional. I guess it's a traditional note. The Little League World Series wrapped up this weekend in Williamsport, and it's always a cool thing for me. I've watched it. It is so funny for me watching these kids play today as to watching the Little League Series when I was a kid their age, because they're so much better. These kids are so much more advanced than I was at 11 years old or 12 or whatever. Well, I guess some of them could be 17 for all we know, but it was fun to watch. Chinese Taipei wins for the first time in nearly 30 years. That's Taiwan for those who grew up at a different era. And they really dominated the U.S. team from Nevada. But it's a fun, I don't know, what is it? These kids, I don't know how these coaches do it. They take like the whole summer off to go to play in all the regional tournaments that lead to Williamsport. Congratulations to both these teams. And I like watching it because it brings me back to a simpler time, even though the games played a little bit differently even there. What do you think about what happened?
I've watched some of the Little League World Series tournament and some of yesterday's game. The day before, I saw Nevada beat Connecticut. And Connecticut, by the way, played in a consolation game that they won. Yeah. The Connecticut had a third-place finish, which was the best finish for the state of Connecticut in the tournament since 1989. So congratulations to the kids from Connecticut for a job well done. Watching the game yesterday, Taiwan against Nevada, you saw Taiwan had a dominant pitcher. And when you have a dominant pitcher on the Little League level, it's like the other team has virtually no chance. He was throwing, and this doesn't sound fast if you're thinking Major League, 76 miles per hour. But when you're throwing 76 miles per hour to kids who are 11 and 12 years old, that's devastatingly fast. That's like
50 feet. 50 feet.
Yeah, I mean, come on.
I didn't see it, but they do like a whatever they translate it into what it would be as at major league speed. I didn't see it for this kid, but that's got to be close to 100 miles an hour.
And I knew exactly. And I knew Nevada would have to play a near perfect game because you might not get any hits, let alone runs. It's crazy the way they were getting overpowered. And so it's 1-0, then it's 2-0. I had to go out and run an errand. I checked the score while I'm out, and it's like the 5th inning, the end of the 5th inning, and it's 2-0. And I'm thinking, wow, maybe Taiwan has to take their pitcher out of the game. So that would maybe open up a door. But then I get home and it's 3-0, and then it ends up 7-0. And it's like Nevada never had a chance in reality. Never had a chance when you're going against a pitcher, that could overpower you on the little league level the way Taiwan had.
It's still a sport that feels like a sporting event. That feels like it used to feel for the most part. There's been some changes. I think they probably do instant replay. They probably do some stuff that they didn't do years ago, but it doesn't seem to overwhelm the excitement of watching the game. I think it's something that's held on to its charm through the years for the most part.
I don't know about you, but it brings back memories. You're watching the kids play, and I visualize myself with a bat. I was a very good little league player. Whether I'd be able to hit that pitching. And in my own head, I tell myself I could have, but the reality is if you have the bat in your hand and you actually you're an old timer from decades ago, maybe you don't come close to hitting it, even though in your own mind you would.
There's a great 30 for 30 on ESPN. I wish I could remember the name of it. It's about one of the storied American teams, U.S. teams that won.
I remember that, yeah.
Remember, if you haven't seen it, guys, I hate promoting stuff for ESPN, but they do some great documentaries.
But you know what's the interesting thing with these kids, Keith? Some of them, not many, go on to become major league players. Not many, some. But some who are really outstanding, as the years go by, they don't quite improve with age. They don't dramatically improve.
Right.
And there's become separation. Well, the few big leaguers, who played, little league ball, in that tournament, their skills get developed much quicker, much more rapidly.
There's some good players. Cody Bellinger was a player in there. Gary Sheffield, Jim Palmer, I think, going way back in time, played in the Little League World Series. There's been more than you think that have played pretty well. And by the way, Little Big Men is the name of that 30 for 30. It's really good. If you haven't, there it is. Danny Fuller just put it up. Thank you, Danny. So Little Big Man, it's really, really good if you like this type of thing. So good stuff. And by the way, speaking of that, do you like the fact that they play that Major League Baseball game out there, I think on the Saturday night before they play that Little League Classic or whatever they call it? Do you like the teams going out there and playing that?
I think that's a question that is served to be answered by the players. Yeah. And I think the answer would be yes. I think the Major League players would get a big kick out of it. Playing in that field, playing in the field of dreams, like a change of pace, because players are fans. They watch movies like Major League. A lot of them got a kick out of it, seeing the fictional characters like the Duke, throw at the batter's head, and then them at the dugout saying, "Bring that junk to me," and the whole bit. I think they get a big kick out of it. I think athletes love movies and scenarios. You're like NBA players, like Pat Riley reportedly, when he was a Knicks coach, he canceled practice and he took the players to see the movie White Men Can't Jump. I'm sure they loved it. They absolutely loved it, even though the players in the playground were obviously inferior players to the NBA players watching it. They still loved all the talk and the whole thing. The movie Hoosiers, college basketball coaches before the NCAA tournament were known at the time to take their players to the movie theaters to watch Hoosiers to gain a little inspiration. In fact, two college teams bumped into one another who were supposed to play one another. They were both, wanted to get some inspiration watching the movie.
Absolutely. Hockey teams should go see Miracle every time they play before they play a big game. I love it. I love that they do that.
Just to tell you, Rick, you're referring to the Little League thing. This is a true story. My manager during the season, he managed the squad to see who would get to play in the tournament, for the Little League World Series. And I was the last cut. He cut me. But listen to this. We had a 4-inning inter-squad game, and there was only one hit, and I hit a home run. That was the one hit between the two teams. My own manager, an adult who hadn't said a word to me all season, he cut me from the team. Why have me come down there? I mean, why have me even try out for the team? You saw me play all year, and I got that big hit in the one inter-squad game, and then I got cut.
There's so much mystery in your background, Jack. I think.
Yeah, I mean, oh man.
I think your next book, once you get this.
Well, let me tell you what you'll get a kick out of.
Autobiography. I want an autobiography of Jack. No. That's what I want.
No, but what you'll get a kick out of very quickly. I went to high school with Willie Randolph, and I never tried out for the
in high school or together
team till my senior year. Had I known Willie Randolph would have gone on to his career with the Yankees, I would have went out for the team early. I would have gotten on the good side of the coach, and I would have had my Rudy moment with Willie at second base. Lopsided game. He would have thrown me in. So I could have said I played with Willie Randolph, and when he fielded a ground ball, threw it to me at first base. That was Tilden High School.
You graduated in the same class as Willie Randolph?
No, I was a year before him.
Okay, there's a lot of mystery now. I can figure out. There's been all this mystery about how old is Jack, and now I can figure it out.
Oh so. Yeah. I mean, listen, I'm in great shape. Work out all the time.
Well, you look like you're 49, Jack. You're doing good. So, anyway,
that's until I buy something, Keith, and without asking, they give me the seniors discount. That's when I become deflated.
Believe me, I understand.
Every year. Yeah, exactly. Hoosiers, you don't get tired of.
100
movies you can watch over and over and over, and you don't get tired of them.
I got to tell you a story I read when Gene Hackman passed away here recently. He told a great story years ago. He thought the movie was a bomb. I don't know if you know this story. He thought his career. There's a shot in the movie of him talking to Dennis Hopper on the bench. And somebody said, "What were you saying to each other?" He goes, "There was nothing in the script. We were just talking to fill time and for the shot." And he said, "I said to him, Dennis, after this movie, neither one of us is ever going to work again." So, you don't always know while you're making a movie how great it's going to be. So it's cool. Let's go to the NFL for a little bit. And before we get into what we were going to talk about a little bit, CA brings up a point about Green Bay. I read this story, and I should have jotted it down. What are your thoughts on this? They're not going to let season ticket holders buy season tickets if they're going to resell them. They want to keep the Green Bay stands full of Green Bay fans. You think teams should be able to regulate this type of thing? I mean,
I do, because I become disillusioned when I'm watching a team in their home stadium and you see the visiting team get cheered because certain teams travel the fan base better than others, and they're going to take over someone else's stadium.
Yeah.
It is such a demoralizing thing. And I understand certain areas, like you take the Miami Marlins, for example. Not a lot of people go to Marlin games, but when the Yankees come in or the Mets come in from New York, there's so many retired people from New York who live in the Miami area, and they grew up Yankee and Met fans. They're going to cheer for the Yankees and Mets. I can kind of get that to an extent, but you can't have that. But who's Green Bay to talk? They show up at other people's stadiums, their fan base, and try to take over the stadium.
I don't have trouble with guys traveling if they can find tickets. What my problem is, I guarantee you these guys are selling them at 300% profit. That's what I have a problem with, making money like crazy. And to your point about teams, Baltimore was the same way you were talking about for a long time. Yankee-Baltimore series would be full of Yankee fans because people would travel. They couldn't get tickets at the stadium. It's cheaper to go to Baltimore. I know a lot of people would go for those series.
Well, no, it even happens locally. You take the New York Rangers and New York Islanders.
Yeah.
The Rangers have a stronger fan base, and they're going to go to an Islander game, in the Islanders arena, and they're going to be a big presence. And the Islander fans are just a minor presence in comparison when they go to Madison Square Garden.
Great point. Well, I don't know if it's going to be very hard for them to regulate.
Can you control it? Can you control it? If you're the team, if you can, by all means, you should control it if you can, as long as it's legal what you're doing.
I'm not sure the guys reselling the tickets are doing what's legal either, because they're scalping them for above the ticket price, which is not legal. Well, I guess it is legal if you've got a license to do it.
I could tell you, Keith, I got amazing stories to talk about scalping. You want to hear another very quick Jack story?
Absolutely.
Willie Mays night in 1973. I went there to Shea Stadium. Willie Mays night. I'm with two of my friends. We bought a few extra tickets. We were going to scalp them. We chickened out. That was the one time, I wasn't into that at all, but I was bold at the time. So we just sold them for what we bought them at. Nothing wrong with that at all. But all of a sudden, my friend all of a sudden says, Duke. You know who walked right by us? Duke Snyder. And Duke said, hey, how you doing? I got to see Duke Snyder walk right past us on Willie Mays night. Talk about a memory.
You're lucky he was an undercover cop. It looked like Duke Snyder, for credit.
That's why I never wound up scouting them, Keith. Chicken now.
In the NFL, these last week of preseason, not a lot going on. We had an interesting story with Shiloh Sanders and a scuffle he had, and he gets cut. Little discussion now whether he would have made a team if he showed a little more maturity there. I think he was getting cut either way. Undrafted free agents are not making their way on NFL teams right and left. And I don't know that he had overwhelmed the Bucs to that point that he was going to make the team anyway. Again, I think it's a story. This wouldn't even been a story if his name wasn't Sanders, I don't think, by the way.
You know what's interesting, what you just brought up with Shiloh Sanders, which I didn't even think about, Keith, and you would know his draft stock better than I would. He was projected reportedly to be about a 5th-round draft choice going into the draft.
Yeah.
He wound up being undrafted. So everyone talks about Shador's slide. Was he affected by the Sanders name distraction, Dion? Because he wasn't drafted. The Bucs signed him as a free agent.
Right.
If he wasn't one of the Sanders brothers, no, would he have been drafted? What's his case?
Possibly the 5th round would have been his ceiling. He couldn't have gone any higher. It's not like he was not really all that highly rated coming out of college, not nearly like his brother. There was a lot of the draft sites had him undrafted. So I don't think it's nearly as big a deal, or I don't say it had no effect, because maybe somebody takes a flyer on him in the 7th round, Mr. Irrelevant, whatever. To go undrafted today, I mean, that didn't shock me. Not like his brother falling to the 5th round. The kid's not a 5th round pick.
And are we making too much out of him taking a swing at the Buffalo player? Because I'm going to tell you, I watched the tape of it. And Shiloh Sanders was getting attacked. He was getting pummeled. He was backpedaling. He was trying to avoid the trouble. And he wasn't able to. And now I'd have to see it in slow motion replay. The Bills players poked him in the eye, stuck his hand through his face mask. He did take one extra swing at the end out of frustration, being mad. But that's an impulse. That's a split-second thing. I don't think he's a total villain here.
No, I don't either. I think again, I think this. You would not even have heard about this story if his name wasn't Sanders. It wouldn't even have been.
Why was he kicked out of the game and the Bills player wasn't?
I don't know what they're looking at.
I don't get this.
Yeah.
But I'm going to tell you too. We saw a similar thing years ago with Mason Rudolph and Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett was suspended for 4 games for swinging his helmet. That's dangerous. You can't do that. But Mason Rudolph was attacking him at the time. It was Myles Garrett that was going backwards, trying to avoid it, in the beginning. And finally, he swung his helmet at him like, get off me. It was that type thing. And Mason Rudolph didn't get any type of disciplinary action, as I recall. And Myles Garrett got suspended a whooping 4 games.
I mean, for years, that's been the thing. The guy who hits second always gets caught, gets suspended or kicked out of the game. But now with video, all the video you have, there's no reason that both participants, and I think you'd see more of that today, both participants get penalized. You're right. I mean, it's a little different swinging a helmet than, a quarterback taking a swing at a guy twice his size. But any surprises? I didn't see any real surprises as far as players getting released, and a lot of those will be re-signed this year or this week. The Vikings make a trade for trade Howell because they're going to keep Carson Wentz as their backup. So I saw an article, I think it was in The Athletic, rating this trade. I don't need to rate this trade because if either one of those guys plays a significant amount of time, then both the Eagles and the Vikings are in a lot of trouble.
Carson Wentz is better than Sam Howell. Come on. It was a good move by the Vikings. Carson Wentz is going to be a very competent backup. And who knows? You give him a chance to play. I didn't see it. I get distracted. A compliment.
I'll put that up later.
Carson Wentz has had a few stops since he was good with the Eagles, but he was me. People forget Carson Wentz lost his quarterback job with the Eagles not because he was in competition with Jalen Hurts.
Got hurt.
It was Carson Wentz's job to lose, and he lost it. He lost it, and he went to Indianapolis. He went to Washington. He couldn't hold on to, starting jobs there. He was Patrick Mahomes' backup. That's about the most cushiony jobs in the NFL. The most secure jobs.
Well, your
backups, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. You don't play and you pick up a paycheck.
Who's your favorite Patriot of all time?
Brian Hoyer. But the thing is, Hoyer thought he was a starter. He actually started at Cleveland a while, and then I think he started for the Raiders. Now, Hoyer wasn't he
started for the Colts too, but it might have been after an injury. But
yeah. Some of these guys just
coming back.
The thing is, with all these veterans hanging on as backups because it prolongs their career, but their goal is always this. They wait for an opening to revive their career as a starter. And it does happen. It happened with Geno Smith. Big surprise with Geno. I never would have guessed it. It happened with Baker Mayfield. They get the and now Baker Mayfield may have revived his career not only as a starter. Baker Mayfield, if he could put together a few good years, which he conceivably can, very conceivably, he could be a Hall of Famer when all is said and done. I know it sounds he's not close now, don't get me wrong. But Baker's had already a few good years in the NFL.
He could have a lot of more good years. He better have at least one Super Bowl ring for Baker Mayfield to have
exactly. No, I agree. But if they do if he does win a Super Bowl or goes there.
Yeah, I agree. Saints quarterback situation seems to be the only one left unresolved. Is it really unresolved? Everything I hear, our colleague James Martin also believes that Shane Rattler will be the starter there, and Shuck will be the backup. I don't know if Shuck's ready to play, quite frankly.
Saints are a mess. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They have a couple of good receivers, and it's a rebuild, and it doesn't matter. If the Saints want to do anything this season at all, they better do it in the early going when the teams, haven't peaked yet. Saints, what would be a good season for the Saints? Come on. 7-10 would be a good season for them, I think.
I was going to say 5-12, so you're better than
Yeah,
me.
okay, there you go. I don't think they're going to go 7-10, a little early on, an early prediction, but I'm just saying what would be a really promising season.
It's funny. Danny has a great point here. The 37th and 40th, the best quarterbacks in the world are known as not any good. The backup quarterbacks, the guys rated that low today, are so much better than the guys like when I was growing up. I mean, those guys look like they couldn't even freaking throw a football when I was growing up, the backup quarterback.
Well, the quarterback situations, I don't want to spend much time on Cleveland Browns because we didn't bring up that, but they're talking about holding on to 4 quarterbacks. The Giants have a similar dilemma. Well, the Browns don't want to cut Shedeur Sanders. The coaches might want to, but the organization doesn't want to. Because I think he means money for them, the jerseys and the whole bit and the national attention. But the Giants have a similar situation, 4 quarterbacks. They're obviously going to keep Jackson Dart. Russell Wilson is the starter. They don't want to cut Jameis Winston, and I don't think they will. And that leaves Tommy Cutlets. So Tommy DeVito, what do you do with him? The Giants have invested a lot of time in him, and they like the kid. They don't want to cut him. And if they put him on a practice squad, we both know someone is going to pick him up. I don't know who. Someone will pick him up. And so what are the Giants to do? I mean, keeping 4 quarterbacks is a waste because usually for games you only plan to play one, maybe a second one, or, an injury, whatever. You keep 3, and the 3rd quarterback is always an emergency, quarterback.
Yeah.
And what the heck use do you have for a 4th one? It's a waste, but they're trying to protect. They don't want to move on from this player.
People are afraid.
What's the problem with the Giants? What are they going to do?
So this was the compliment that Rick gave you earlier. He says the memories with Jack remind me of how much he liked my interviews because I used to do an interview show, which I might get back into. But he says no more teasing, Jack, because now, as he feared, you're likely the same age as Rick. So
I don't mind the teasing. I like it, Rick. Keep it coming.
It is fun. Rick's a funny
guy.
I'm like,
I'll smile. It doesn't bother me the way the criticism doesn't bother Jerry Jones. Like he'll put that smile on his face, Jerry. Did you see Jerry hugging Stephen A. Smith? Stephen A. Smith always likes to go off on the Cowboys. They did an interview, but excuse me, the way Jerry Jones greeted him so warmly, you kind of wonder what Jerry Jones is really thinking. I'm going to tell you, I would take, if I became president of the United States, Jerry Jones wouldn't be running the Cowboys during that time because I'd name him my oil czar, whatever. I call him into the office, want him to be in charge of the oil industry. Say, Jerry, you got to let your son Stephen run the Cowboys. You can't run it during the time you need administration. And Jerry would probably accept the job because bottom line, at the end of the day, all these guys like money above any other material thing.
It won't work. They sent Woody Johnson out of the country, and it didn't work for the Jets. So I mean, he wasn't
that involved. Woody Johnson wasn't that involved during the time. He took this position seriously.
I'm just saying, exporting the owners doesn't necessarily work because they made him ambassador to what, Ireland or someplace.
Well, that's what got Robert in England. That's what got Robert Salah fired. The Jets lost to the Vikings in England to fall to 2-3, and he lost in front of Woody Johnson's people in England. Woody Johnson had all these dignitaries probably at the game, and he didn't like being embarrassed.
Well, I had a story I wanted to get to. I don't think maybe we'll touch on it on Friday, but to answer your question here, Danny, who knows? I mean, I think the Yankees will win before the Cowboys. Put it that way. I think.
Who is it harder? What sport is it harder to win a championship in, Danny? Football or baseball?
I would say football because of the hard salary cap, but they keep raising it anyway. So how much of a cap is it really? But I don't know. I mean, with the layers of playoffs, you're going to get in and have a chance if you're any good, you'll have a chance every single year, like the Yankees. Cowboys aren't in there every single year. So maybe football, I think football's harder.
I think baseball is harder.
20 years. So I don't know. Okay. And Danny says football as well. So anyway, good show today, Jack. Thank you. We'll be back on Friday and with more of Jack's life story, and we'll see what else comes up that day. So thank you for.
I love this tonight, 9 p.m. 7 p.m. 7 p.m. Eastern time with Frank Laterzo, myself, for the best in boxing.
Thank you. I don't know why I keep making a note of that. I keep forgetting to write it down, but I don't want to miss it. So catch Glove Fist tonight, not Iron Fist, Glove Fist. And I'll see you guys on Wednesday with College Football Huddle, and we'll be back here Friday morning. Jack, thank you so much. You guys have a great day. Bye-bye.